Welcome to Grant Rock Warehouse, and tonight Eric Hansen's back, and we are going to take a look at the major label albums from the band The Outfield. These albums span from 1985 to 1992. This is a great discussion. Let's do it.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Eric Hansen back to the show. Tonight we are looking at a band that originally, I knew of this band back in the day. I really didn't pay much attention to it. And then Eric thought maybe let's do a show on The Outfield. And I went, all right, I'm game. Because if anybody has watched The Warehouse, you know I love to do shows about bands. Yes, I knew The Outfield. But did I really know their catalog? No, I'm coming in green. But boy, oh boy, am I glad we're going to take a look at this catalog. Now, originally, I thought we were going to rank these. But to be honest, I'm kind of stumped because they have a really strong catalog. And I think a lot of these records, if we were going to rank them, it'd be nitpicking. I don't know. I think it'd be better just to have Eric and I here just talk about the records, go back and forth. You know, the whole reason, the whole premise is to turn you on to stuff. And I am so glad as a host that I've been turned on to The Outfield because the catalog, at least those major label releases, are incredible. So let's start off. Eric, nice to see you. I appreciate you coming on tonight. What a great topic. What a great band.
Yes. Yeah. Underrated, underappreciated, little overlooked. I'll touch on that.
Well, you were talking about that. You've been a big fan of this band for years. Yeah. You got them early on. Well, I'm going to throw it over to you just to do more of like a brief intro, talk about the band a bit, and then we're just going to go through, the 5 major label records. So go ahead, Eric, take over and let's give us a little info on The Outfield.
So they started out like early 80s. You know, the band is actually from Great Britain. Consisted of primarily 3 members: Tony Lewis on bass and lead vocals, John Spinks on guitar and background vocals. Unfortunately, we've both lost both of them over the past 10 years, 12 years now. And original drummer Alan Jackman, and they also had Simon Dawson, who was a session drummer who joined later in the band. They were originally called the Baseball Boys, and then they changed their name over to The Outfield. So back in London, Tony Lewis and Alan Jackman kind of wanted to start something, but this is early 80s in London, so the punk scene is kind of starting to fade a little bit, and they weren't really interested in the new wave stuff. So let's do something a little bit more up-tempo. More of the pop rock. And really that's kind of what the band became, like a combo of pop rock, a little bit of power pop, AOR. And it's so strange, Grant, how many reasons you can list, they never really made it. They were like the Fix. They never really had a lot of success over in their homeland, but here in the US, they had commercial success. We'll touch on that as we go here, but really really fun band that I've just, every time I listen to them, is just, it kind of puts you in a good mood.
Yeah,
they're one of those type of bands. So
this stuff. I was, come on, I knew about the track Your Love.
Sure.
If we're just looking at the debut, we could start there.
Yeah.
Say It Isn't So starts off the album.
Yeah.
Your Love was one of the singles.
Yeah.
But I was totally aware of this record. I just didn't pay much attention to it because, for one, maybe it was this. So they played Your Love a lot. You could not escape it back in 1985. They played it all the time. So maybe I got tired of it. Now, when I look at this record now, look how many years have passed. Yeah. I can listen to this record and totally just, why did I wait so long to listen to it? I think it's absolutely brilliant. And you mentioned the power pop aspect. You mentioned just pop in general. I think that you might consider the Outfield. We always talk Stephen Schnee when we talk power pop. Yes, there is power pop on this record, but there's also power pop adjacent
Yes.
material here. It's not all power pop. I
Correct.
would say Say It Isn't So, Your Love. Yeah,
Oh.
I put those in power pop. But my God, it's such a phenomenal record. What's your thoughts on that debut?
This is a definitive 80s classic. 2 times platinum in the US, gold in Canada. Of course, Your Love went number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Mhm.
All the Love actually went to number 14 on the Billboard. But every song on here, Grant, I Don't Need Her, Every Time You Cry, 61 Seconds, Mystery Man, Talk to Me is great, Nervous Alibi. It's an absolutely fantastic debut that, in my opinion, it should be put on some of the great debuts of all time. It's a strong statement. I understand that, but it's catchy. It's fun. They're enjoyable songs. I don't know. The Outfield hit it out of the park on this one, pun intended. By the way, Reg Webb played keyboards on here, who played with Robin Trower. So this is just what more can you say?
I think, well, when I listen to this record, when I think of the quote unquote Outfield sound,
yes,
I think about it off of this record. Well, actually, this has it quite a bit too.
Yeah.
This band, they did morph. They did change. They did change their sound a bit. You know, they had different producers.
Yep.
This record and Bangin', both of these had the same producer, and the producer was William Whitman. So they have a similar tonality.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, we've heard all this before. This is the first album. You've had your whole life to come up with all the material for this first album. And at this point, I mean, it's just all John Spinks writing everything. Tony Lewis is basically just playing bass, doing lead vocals. And you've got
Alan
John
Jackman.
Spinks. Well, yeah, but John Spinks is pretty much backing him up.
Yes.
A lot of these later records, John Spinks takes over some lead vocals and stuff.
Yes.
You're going, well, what does this record sound like? Well, I mentioned that it has that power pop element. The thing is with this is that, yes, this is an 80s production, but this is an 80s production that wears very well. For one, we're talking 1985. A lot of people were using drum machines. Well, there's no drum machines on here. We've got Alan Jackson playing drums on here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have that gated drum sound like you would expect by this point.
Right.
First, by 86, 87, that gated drum sound really took over the 80s. We avoid it here. And we avoid it here on the second record. And Alan Jackman, I must say, is an excellent drummer.
Yeah. Yep.
Great chops. In fact, the whole band is great.
Yes.
Tony is a bass player, phenomenal. John Spinks writes all the songs, and he's a phenomenal songwriter. Everything's catchy. Everything is memorable. This record is an absolute gem. And like I said, Eric, I can't believe I went through my whole life without really diving into it.
Wow. That's surprising.
It's crazy. But I don't know. You want to talk more about this record? I mean, there are certain tracks that you like. How do you listen? How do you hear this record?
That whole first side, Say It Isn't So, Your Love.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, many times you've heard that song, Your Love. Is there any beginning of a song? Oh, I'm sure there are, but Josie's on a vacation far away. Whether you even know who the band is that sing it, it's like, oh, you know that song. It's funny because when the video came out for that, I think it was like in a bar or something that they were at, or I think Tony Lewis was walking the street. The opening guitar riff, dun, 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 it's actually longer right before he jumps into Josie's on. It's actually really cool, and I always wish they would have released like an extended version of it It's actually, with that opening guitar lick.
Right.
I Don't Need Her is fantastic. 61 Seconds, Mystery Man, all the Talk to Me is underrated. I think that's an underrated track. These guys were John Spinks and Tony Lewis. They were magic together. They're like a Lennon, kind of like a Lennon McCartney, Richards and Jagger.
Mhm.
That type of songwriting duo. They just fed off each other really well. Geez, I mean, obviously it paid off. I mean, this thing was just everywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love it too.
It's one of my favorite debuts of all time. It's
Well, let me throw this out since we're having a
ahead.
discussion. Say It Isn't So.
Yes.
What a way to start the album. You've got
Oh yeah.
harmonies,
Yeah.
roaring guitars, great vocals. And like I mentioned, the songwriting on this record's top notch. But the thing that really hits me, that really makes the Outfield, is John Spink's guitar sound
Yep.
and Tony's vocals. And,
Yes.
on this first album, it's Tony all the way.
Yeah.
But the guitar sounds, to me, when I listen to it, is kind of like a cross between U2 and Big Country to some degree.
No.
And,
Yep.
But when you listen to this record, you immediately know who it is.
Yes.
It's so identifiable. And the whole record's like that. So Say It Isn't So, wonderful track. Your Love, of course, wonderful. You couldn't escape it back in 1985. Great harmonies, great songwriting, checks all my boxes. It's a classic. And like I said, I didn't care for it so much when I was out as a kid, but now I really love it. I Don't Need Her. This is where I really hear the Big Country influence. And then it's funny with this track, it kind of morphs into that U2 kind of thing. Again, the vocals are great, bass is pounding, drums are great, the guitars are clean and ringing. This record,
it's produced really well.
it's
And you
produced
mentioned
really well.
they do have a very distinct sound for a band
Yes.
like never again who had some commercial success but was never massive like U2. They
Right.
have it's something to be said. I've always said it's something to be said when you can recognize a band for their sound, like a Queen or a Boston. You know who they are. When you hear the Outfield. It's all over this record. Every
Yeah.
song.
Another
Yeah.
track I want to mention real quick is Every Time You Cry, which is the
Yes.
ballad. I
Yeah.
think that's a key track.
Yeah.
Trademark Outfield sound. It's just, golly, the choruses are just absolutely wonderful, catchy, very memorable. This is a record that you don't have to listen to over and over to get. This is one of those albums that it just automatically, you get it right on the first listen.
Yep.
So I would say if you like power pop, you need to have this in your library.
Yep.
If it, like I said, I think this is more power pop adjacent. But if you dig melodies, if you're a fan of the '60s, if you like the Beatles, the Kinks, this record pretty much is the '80s. I would
Like a
say
Dave
this
Clark
is
5 type of thing. Yeah.
this would be the '80s version of anything in the '60s. If you like
Yes.
the Beatles, the Kinks, that kind of
Yes.
stuff. So I would totally recommend it. If I would suggest this to anybody, I would say, well, if you just need one Outfield album, this would be it. But
Yeah.
there's a lot more in the catalog that I like. So anyway, let's go on to the next record. This came out in 1987. We're talking the Outfield Bangin', and this was also produced by William Whitman. There's the vinyl. There it is. Safety pins. Another great record. Go ahead, if you want to go ahead and talk about that.
You mentioned produced by William Whitman.
Yeah.
This one went gold. 1987. Peter Wood, who played with Tommy Shaw and Scandal, he does keyboards on this. Is this album as immediate as their debut? I say no. However, it's still an excellent follow-up that carries over their catchy, accessible sound. Since You've Been Gone, which is kind of crazy. It's the last track on the record. It went number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it's one of their best songs.
Mhm.
It's fantastic. John Spink's guitar work on that. Tony Lewis's voice. Tony Lewis's voice always reminded me of a cross between John Anderson from Yes and Sting.
Oh, I mentioned Sting when
Yeah.
we go through this.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
I totally
but
get that.
Somewhere in America opens up the album. It's great. Banging on My Heart. Long Way Home. There's a John Spink's vocal. It's actually I think it's a hidden gem on here, and actually one of my favorite Outfield songs. Love that song. The chorus is fantastic. Better than nothing. I would say a little less power pop adjacent on this, more straight ahead pop rock.
Yeah.
Great vocal harmonies between Spinks and Lewis on this. I think it beats Sophomore Slump, which is saying a lot considering what we just talked about.
Right.
So this is essential Outfield.
Essential.
Yes.
When I listen to it, I think they still have the melodies that they always have. The songwriting's just as good. I think the guitar sounds on here are a little bit harder edged. There's a little bit different in the production that's more okay. When I listen to this seems to have a little bit more breathing room when I listen to it. This seems to be a bit denser. It's like they're trying to fill the space up more. Is that good or bad? I don't think it's good or bad. I think it's just a little bit different.
Sure.
But they're evolving. They still sound like the Outfield. You hear this and you go, oh, that's the Outfield. All the songs are great. I have no issues with anything. They did record this at Air Studios in London, which is the studio that George Martin owned. Starts off with Somewhere in America. And again, all the songs here are written by John Spinks. When I listen to Somewhere in America, it just sounds bigger. Bigger, more spacious. The songwriting is still great, but this record just adds a little bit more. Wonderful opening track. And God, you listen to Tony's vocals, you listen to John Spink's songwriting, and you just melt. Banging on my heart. Guitars are big, but the drums are not big by 80s standards. They don't appear dated. This record still holds up. You could listen to it. Yeah, it sounds great. Okay, maybe you think of it and it sounds a bit polished, but it doesn't sound dated. There's nothing here. The guitars have a lot of chorus on them. Echo. Think U2. Think Big Country. It's still here like that. Yes. No Surrender is the next track. I hear that U2 influence. Production sounds great and guitars. The vocals on No Surrender, though, sound like Sting to me. But it's another great example. There's nothing weak on it. It's just different. If you like something that's more upfront, more immediate.
Yeah, agree.
The debut's for you, but this is not, I don't consider this a weaker effort. It's different, but it's still the Outfield.
Yes. Agree.
All right. Yeah, I kept going. I wrote more about the songs, but Moving Target, I'm just saying, it kind of reminds me of Every Breath You Take on steroids. But the more
Alone with You is good too. Yeah.
Right. Okay, let me say this. Remember how I said that when you listen to this, it just totally takes you in immediately? This takes a little bit more to digest.
Yeah.
Is it good or bad? No. It's just different.
No.
But anyway, highly recommended. So far, there's not anything. There's no sophomore slump. There's nothing here that I wouldn't recommend.
We're doing well right now.
We're doing well. The next record we've got, Voices of Babylon. Came out in March of 1989. This is on Columbia as well. This is the last record in their contract. I don't know if they had 3 albums. I do know as they kept going through their career, they sold less and less and less. Happens to a lot of bands. They aren't anything unusual here. But 1989, third album, it marks a slight shift in sound because they have a new producer. David Kane.
Yes.
Kane.
Yep.
It's a little bit more contemporary rock vibe, but it still has that Outfield sound. It sounds like the Outfield, but it's a little bit more contemporary. Don't forget, these gentlemen are maturing. I'm not saying they're old, but our songwriting changes, you mature as a band. Um, I'm going to throw it over to Eric. Eric, you want to talk a bit more about this record?
Yeah, you mentioned David Kane, one of the
Hmm.
producers. Besides John Spinks, David Kane, yeah,
Right.
he produced the Bangles, Paul McCartney.
Oh my God, you're right.
He plays keyboards on this too. And then David Leonard also, I think, has a co-producing on here, if I'm not mistaken. He's done Toto, Chaka Khan, Hootie and the Blowfish, bunch of other, yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's good. I'm glad you mentioned David Leonard because I'm not sure exactly if this was recorded over different sessions with different
could have been,
producers.
yeah.
It doesn't really
It's-
go much into that detail.
no,
Um,
no.
but there's a shot of the band right there in the
Yep,
booklet.
it's a cool shot. I would like that one.
There you go. John
Yeah.
Spinks.
Mm-hmm. They
There's
each got the
Tony.
individual Tony Lewis, yeah.
Yeah. But
Crazy that they're-
this is the last album with Alan Jackman. And there
Yeah,
is
correct.
Alan right
Yep.
there. But
Yep.
but still, sounds great. Real drums on this record, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Oh yeah. It's
Anyway, go ahead.
the so yeah, 1989, a tad bit of a departure from the first two records. The band, I think, goes for a little bit more of a deeper lyrical approach on this album. That's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Was the audience or their fans ready for that? I don't know.
Well,
I would say it's a little bit of a quote unquote risk record for their third one on the band's part instead of their tried and true formula. But geez, My Paradise, that could belong on their first two records. That's just a fantastic song. Part of Your Life is good. The Night Ain't Over. No Point. Making Up. I really like the groove on that one. Good guitar work by John Spinks on that. This isn't bad. And it's not bad. No, I like it. I
I love
It's
it. I have
just,
no issue with it at
yeah,
all.
it's just different. So if I'm telling somebody to start off, go listen to the Outfield, I'm not starting them on this album. But there's a couple other tracks on here that just don't stand out for me. But overall, I like it. It's produced well. It sounds fine. Like I said, if it's for anybody who's just kind of getting into the band and they hear these two and they go, "Oh, what's happening here?"
Mhm.
It's just a little bit of a different approach. Like I said, I think lyrically, I think they've actually improved here. They're getting into some different topics. Nothing heavy, but yeah, not bad. I recommend it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Well,
But compared to the first two, just a little different for me. That's all.
well, yeah, they've when I listen to it, just seems like a logical progression to me. Voices
Sure,
of Babylon,
sure.
the
Yeah.
guitars shimmer. We've got real drums. It's not that big of a departure, like some bands. Look at the Beatles. They went from one thing, XTC, another good example.
Yeah, it's just
Morph constantly. The Outfield wasn't one of those bands in which they had one record,
No.
the next record really evolved, like Radiohead, which is like night and day between each release. The
Sure.
Outfield had one thing going, and that one thing they did well. So if you get this record, for me, I think you could go ahead and get this, but for some reason, when I listen to this debut record, everything just hits on all cylinders.
Sure.
Again, like I said, you had your whole life to produce this one record. So, but I think the Outfield for producing records is off 85 and then 87, 89, blah, blah, blah. 89, this is a good effort. Voices of Babylon, the guitar shimmer, like I said, logical progression. You've got real drums. My Paradise is a rocker, and I wrote on my notes that this could have been on the first album. Strong riffs, killer vocals, Part of Your Life. The third track, trademark Outfield guitar.
Yeah.
Catchy. And I wrote on here, was this a single? I'm not sure what was a single off of this record.
It
but
was.
they could
I
have
think
been.
I think My Paradise was released.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that too.
Yeah.
Uh, Shelter Me is a ballad.
Hmm.
Thing is, I could go down the track listing. Songwriting's good, vocals are great, production's great. It checks every box. I would recommend this for anybody who's looking into this band.
Yeah.
So anyway, you listen to this record, it's more of the same. This wasn't a band, so to speak, that evolved quickly and, like Radiohead or any of those, like I mentioned. I think it's just a good record. You get an Outfield album, you kind of know what to expect, and they didn't really shake things up too much. It's just a
No.
logical progression. They have grown. It's not quite as intimate or catchy as the debut,
Yeah.
but still, I would not recommend it.
No. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I mentioned before, commercial performance on these things, this didn't really
No.
do anything,
No.
you
No.
know?
1989. Yeah.
No. I mean, it did okay on the charts, moderately well, but not as big as Your Love. They never achieved that greatness,
Right.
that
Right.
notoriety like they had before.
Right.
Um, Production by David Kane. You have any issues with that? Do you like that?
No,
Okay.
I thought the album sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, sound wise, I actually was playing it. Was it last week, early
Mhm.
this week, and I kind of had it cranked a little bit. It sounds good. I make no mistake, I like it. It's just a little bit of a different, like you said, it's a progression, yes, but yeah, we're off to a good start. This is for these first three albums are solid, and
I
there's
agree.
nothing that you're like that I'm frowning my face up like what are they doing here? Nothing like that so far.
Yeah. So
So
I suppose they had a 3 album contract. They didn't get
yes,
re-signed. They did sign to MCA. They
yep,
released this album, Diamond Days, in 1990. This album was produced by John Spinks.
yep,
So now they're self-producing, which is, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's great. If anybody could do it, John Spinks could produce them with good results. But I think this gave John Spinks a lot more creative control because, yeah, he's calling the shots, but hey,
yes,
they're his songs. I get it.
yep,
But I think that this was also a moment in time where I think maybe got a new label, you got a new album. John Spinks is producing that. You kind of reinterpret what the Outfield are and look at their sound. So it sounds like the Outfield, but with a little bit more modern rock element. Now I want to mention we mentioned Alan, who was the drummer, is not in the band now.
right.
And when I listen to this, is there a real drummer on here? Because it sure sounds like a drum machine. Now that you take that for what it is that good or bad? But I think it's okay. I'd rather have a real drummer, but we're down to just 2, and then there were 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm assuming this is the way they wanted this to sound. I don't know. Do you think John Spinks, this is probably what he wanted? Take a little bit harder edge. The songwriting's still there. It sounds a little bit different. Yeah, okay. When I listen to this, you remember that guitar sound that I mentioned before with the Outfield that was so synonymous. This is a little bit of a departure and doesn't sound quite the same as what came before.
Right.
Is that good or bad? But they sound more modern rock. It's starting to sound like the 90s.
Mhm.
More synthesizers on here. The production's slicker. And I think they probably got to this point. MCA's probably gone, well, gentlemen, you haven't had a hit since 1985, a real hit. Can we maybe get some more radio-friendly tracks and go for a hit?
Yeah.
It didn't happen for this. This didn't receive the same commercial success as Banging or the debut, but I think it still sounds good. Singles like For You, For Me it received some radio airplay. It's not too bad.
Right.
Anyway, what's your thoughts on this record?
Yeah, like I said, There's little drum machines going on here, but it's actually their first one with Simon Dawson.
Oh, it's Simon Dawson?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, it's their shortest album in their entire catalog. Um, and this does keep up on what they were doing on the prior, little bit of a lyrical growth
Hmm.
as the band has now moved into the 90s here. The song For You went to number 13 on the Billboard album rock. It was actually their last top 40 hit.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Probably the best song on here. Burning Blue, is it Burning Blue? Or is it? Yeah, Burning Blue. That's really good guitar work. I like the lick in that one. One Night in Heaven. Alvin Lee from 10 Years After does
Oh.
the guitar solo on there. So 10
Mhm.
years after, I'd love to change the world. That was their popular song. So he's on this one. Um, yeah, the production sounds a little different, and maybe it's just John just trying to let's just tweak it because it's just Tony and I now with the drum situation. Um, Overall, a little bit of a letdown for me. It's not terrible. Are the wheels starting to come off here? I'm not going to say
No.
that. I'm not going to say that. It's
Yeah,
just
I don't hear it like that though. You mean like,
no.
are there cracks forming like on
It's
the crack show? Or
no,
the
no, no. It's to me, it's more of a little bit more contemporary, adult contemporary sound thrown into the outfield, the outfield genre
oh,
song, sound, I should say. But yeah, it's not bad. It's again, if we were to rank these, Grant, this is coming in last.
well, if I'm going to rank the five, this is the one coming
Sure,
in last. Though I
sure.
do think there's some tracks on here.
Yeah.
You could consider this a transitional album because what
Yeah.
we get on the next album, I think, is so much. Oh my God, I love that
Yeah,
record.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, the thing is that when I listen to this, it seems like Lewis's vocal is a little bit absent. It's not as pronounced on here.
Right,
And the
punchy. Right.
guitar
Yes.
and the guitar that we once had on these previous outings are isn't as biting or
Distinct
captures
sounding, distinct outfield. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
We've lost that distinct outfield sound. And where is Tony on all this? He's here, but he's not out in the forefront like we've had him before. Is that good
Right.
or bad? Well, you let us know in the comments what you
Yeah.
think. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine because the songs are still here.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of a different outfield. That's all I'm
Yes.
going to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, this would be, yeah,
Yeah. Number, it would rank 5.
it would rank five, though.
Yeah.
I would not trade this in.
No, no,
Okay,
no. You
well,
need it if
ladies
you're
and gentlemen,
completionist.
we are nitpicking at this point
Yeah. A little bit. Little bit.
because the catalog is so strong. I don't know if I could even rank them. I've never had a catalog like I couldn't rank it. This is hard. Yeah, I could rank it. Yeah, I know
Sure.
what the number one is, but hey, the rest of them, your guess is
Yeah.
good as mine. I think they're all
Yeah.
good. But this would be my number five if I had to rank them. Um, but yeah, I don't have an issue with this record. Um, by 1992, we've got the next album, Rock Eye. 1992 on MCA. So this is the last major label
Yeah.
uh, record. There's a song on here that was included in the Mighty Ducks film. I don't know if that makes any much difference, but they were in the Mighty Ducks film, so it's on here. And I'm
Right.
not even sure which song was in the Mighty Ducks. Do you know?
Winning it all.
So the opening track was in it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did write this on my notes that Winning It All is as good as anything that ever came on that first album. Now, I do want to mention this. When I listen to this, I don't know how you listen to it, and I'm not ranking them, but I think to me, on my ears, the songwriting is all top notch. I know some of the reviews that came out later, they gave it fair reviews, but after all this time has passed by, we're talking 1992. This to me seems closer to the debut than any of the other albums. So if you like the debut sound, I think this really is quite close. And I think I mean, like winning it all, anything, it's just as good as anything
Yeah.
on the first album, closer to me. Catchy as hell, wonderful, the
Yep.
way it should be, a little bit more AOR,
Yep.
maybe a little yachty, but Tony sounds absolutely wonderful on this
Yep.
track. Great song. I could go on with the tracks, but I love this. God, I could probably go on a ledge and maybe rate this my number two. Maybe, but I've been listening to this all day today because I cannot turn it off. And you never see this record. I know I'm talking, but I'm all giddy and I'm all worked up. I really like this record. I can't explain it. I shouldn't. It's the fifth album, but I like it. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to hog it all up, but you know how I get when I get all worked up. So why don't you tell me what's your thoughts on this record from '92?
Yeah. Hey, 1992, after Diamond Days there, the fun AOR pop rock power pop combo is back with
Yeah.
this.
Okay. So you're hearing what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Yes. So to me, this is like you compare it more to the debut. This is to me more like banging.
Okay. Well, but
Going
we're
back.
nitpicking
We're
again.
going back.
We're
Yes.
nitpicking.
Yes.
There's really not that much difference between them, but you would think that this record would be somewhere in between this or this.
Sure. Or right after that, or right after banging. Yeah.
Or could be, or hell, it could be after this. That's kind of how I hear it, but we all hear this differently.
Sure.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Keep talking.
No, it's Reg Webb is back on keyboards on this one. Alvin Lee does guitar on the song Jane, so he's helped them out a little bit. Winning it all, and I think the NBA, I think for a few years there in the '90s, I think they used winning it all like during their promotion for I think the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, or during the season too, and of course the Mighty Ducks. Closer to me, that should have been a hit. But it's 1992, Grant.
1992.
Where are we at here in the United States? We're full-fledged steamrolling with the grunge.
Good point. Good point, because it's totally doesn't jive with anything that's out there. This is more alien than you can believe. I mean, I'm just going to throw this up there. Anybody making a comment, how many people in the comments have seen this CD ever? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but before we did this show, I don't even recall seeing this ever.
Here's what's funny too about the cover. Didn't realize until, I don't know, maybe like 8 years ago that it says Rock Eye. That's how much I was paying attention. I'm just looking at it. I'm like, where is Rock Eye? And I never noticed that.
Well, what was your,
Eric,
what were your history though with this? Is this something you picked up later? Did you buy this?
Later, because at this point, I was listening to all that, dive into, I was into the Alice in Chains and Stone Temple Pilots and stuff. But as the 90s moved along, there was some power pop that kind of came out. The Posies, you had Weezer coming, a little bit of Gin Blossoms. This kind of fit right in with it, to be honest, if you think about it. So if it was around maybe a year or two later, this was released. But, it's still the Outfield, the quote unquote 80s band. And, it's 1994. I'm just speculating here, but I agree with the way it should be. Tony sounds great on it. I do like the song Take Me Home, On the Line. Again, I mentioned before, Spinks and Lewis, they were great together. I like this one. It may not be their best album, but it's definitely to me, it's a step forward from definitely Diamond Days and a little bit of Voices of Babylon. I recommend it. This is good Outfield. If you want something similar to this.
Yeah.
There
Well,
you
you
go.
know what? I'm just going to rank it for the hell of it. And I think everybody probably knows how I'm going to rank it. I'm going to go with this is my number one.
Yeah.
This is my number two. I swear to God. 3, 4, and 5. And yes, this is 5, but still, I would recommend it. We're nitpicking.
Yeah.
It's a great catalog. And me personally, I haven't heard any of those other records that were, indie released. I can't really
Oh, so
mention that, but
yeah.
I know you've heard them. You probably could touch on that while
So,
we're doing this.
1999 Extra Innings was released. This is actually spawned out of a fan club release in 1998 called It Ain't Over. So this was actually released on a label, Platinum. And this has John Spinks, Tony Lewis, and Simon Dawson. So Simon is still with them. So it's kind of a collection of a little leftover from that It Ain't Over. And to me, it's a little closer to those early records. Rock Eye, Bangin', Play Deep, fun, catchy songs that we've come to know and love from these guys. It's too bad because it's 1999 now. Here we are again talking about genres. We're kind of still in that alternative. Now we're moving into new metal and some of the pop alternative stuff. But some of these songs could be radio friendly. Heaven's Little Angel. Check this album out, Grant. Lay Down, Certain Kind of Love, Kiss the Rain. It's funny. Me and some friends saw these guys twice within like a year and a half span. They were actually at Empress Joliet in Joliet, Illinois. They were at the Empress Casino, and they were at some club up in the north suburbs. They were fantastic live. They were great. They did a great cover of The Police's Message in a Bottle. I mean, the band. I mean, Tony Lewis sounded like it's 1987. I mean, that's how
Well,
good the guitar. Yeah.
well, you know what, Eric? If anybody could cover The Police, these guys could.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yes.
But that also, when I heard The Police before on this, I'm going, well, it all makes sense,
Yeah. 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 It's they had 2 albums that were released like through their website. One was from 2006 called Anytime Now. And eventually I think that one was released on CD through different stores. That one was a little bit of an odd one to me, as it sometimes sounds like little leftover songs, which is actually kind of true. But there's 3 songs on there that I recommend for anybody watching on the album Anytime Now, because you can find it on YouTube Music, Spotify, or any of No Fear is definitely a throwback song. This Love Affair and It's All About Love. Those are my solid songs off that one. The rest of that album sounds a little bit like all the sounds kind of like sound the same to me.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit mellow at times. It's just missing that classic Outfield song. If we were to rank all 8, they have 8 actual official releases.
You gonna
This
rank
one will
them?
come in last.
Oh, okay.
But their last album that was released in 2011, because John Spinks passed away from I think it was cancer of the liver or something in
Wasn't it like
2014.
2014?
Yeah, something like that. Alan Jackman came back and played on the album called Replay. And boy, the Boys of Summer, as some of the fan club would call these guys, were back. The CD, I know they released it on CD, and I've been looking Discogs and eBay. It's a little, so I'm like, I got to keep an eye out. But they have songs like California Sun, which is classic Outfield. In Your Company, Who Would You Be? I like that one. Shake Your Thing is really good. Disraeli Years, not the Cream album. It's a return to form. Good. It sounds great. It sounds like old Outfield, but it's just more mature and focused because obviously they're older now.
Right.
I recommend Replay. Check out that one. And they have a couple other ones that they released, like a Rarities demo one, which actually one of the songs on that one, I think it's called The Baseball Boys, Rare and Demos. They have a song called Tiny Lights. So the 2 times I saw them live, they opened up with that song. Because my friends and I are like, have you heard this song before? And another song called Burning Light and Mr. Dreammaker. And then there's another one that they released called Final Innings, which was it came out in 2021, which is like unreleased favorites and archives that the fans have requested over the years. As far as I know, it's still only digital. But yeah, there's some good stuff on there to check out too. Like I said, I just don't think they got proper CD or vinyl releases yet.
Mhm.
So, but
Wow.
yeah, it's really kind of a crazy when you think about this band, Grant. You know, their peak years, 85 to 90.
Yep.
You know, they didn't fit that MTV image. You know, and it's just I hardly ever remember outside of Your Love. I don't ever hardly remember seeing anything on even VH1.
No.
So it's like it's almost like the band almost had like a quote unquote cult following, even though they found commercial success. So I don't know. I've always enjoyed them. A fun band just to listen to out by the pool, doing yard work, cleaning the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Don't
those are
hesitate.
your
Don't
Yeah.
hesitate. Get
No,
them.
no. Check these guys out.
So real quick before we wrap this up, how would you, if you were going to rank them, might as well, how would you could rank the whole catalog. How would you rank it? What would you think? Go back from your number one back.
Number one is
Debut, of course.
Yeah. Number two.
Okay. I could totally see that.
Yeah. Number three. What did I have for number three? I think I had
Okay.
Rock Eye.
Yeah, I think any of those could just be.
Yes. Number four, I did have, this is long. It's got like 15 tracks on there, but I did enjoy that. I would put number 5, Replay.
Okay.
Number 6 is Voices of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
7, Diamond Days. 8, Any Day Now.
Okay.
Yeah. The one that was digitally on their
Right.
yeah. So yeah. But yeah, there's something for everybody on in this catalog. If you like that genre, the pop rock, power pop type of AOR,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of hooks, good catchy choruses, great guitar. You said it, Grant. They were a talented band.
Oh my God, I love these records.
Yeah.
You know, if I didn't have to prep for more shows, I'd probably just keep listening. Now I'll keep listening. I think this was a brilliant idea to cover this. And this is why I do these shows, because, you know, if you've got a band, well, Grant, you may want to listen to this. You might like it. I'm down. I'm willing to take the chance. And I just can't believe that I've went all these years without it.
Yeah. It's like finding a new best friend.
It's like a new best friend. So anyway, in the comments, we'd love to hear what you think of the Outfield. If you want to rank them, please do. I'd like to see that. Let us know what you think of the records. If you haven't heard them, please do yourself a favor and go out. Go to Spotify. I don't know what they're on Spot. I don't know what's available.
Yeah.
I physical media. So, you know, there you go. But go out, check it out. Let us know in the comments what you think of the band. And yeah, there'll be more stuff. I'm sure, Eric. I don't know. Do we have anything else on the horizon? We've had to have something on the horizon. I always
we've got
say
a
that
few
at the
couple
end.
things coming up. Yeah.
So stay tuned. There will be more. Eric will be back.
Yeah.
So there you go. I don't have much more to add. Do you have anything more to add before we wrap it up?
Fun band. Viewers, definitely check them out. And yeah, I'm curious to see everybody's ranking and what they think of the Outfield.
All right. Yeah. So be it. All right, Eric, thanks for doing this show. It'll be fun. We'll see you on the next one. Everybody, like I said, please leave a like. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please leave a thumbs up. It always helps the algorithm. And we'll see you back here. What's next? I don't know. Maybe this. But we'll see you back next time. And keep it clean, everybody. We'll see you.